Alrighty, welcome back. 34 Waggle edition of PA High School Football Report. Here we work through all kinds of things involving Mid-Penn Conference football and beyond. Obviously, in 2 short weeks, Mr. Sostek, we are going to stretch our borders a little bit.
Yep.
We talk a lot of District 3 and, of course, on to the PIAA tournament. But right now, let me introduce colleague Dan Sostek. I always ask you a couple of football questions before we get into more football coverage. And I want to congratulate you, okay? I want to congratulate you because classic letdown, you noticed it.
Yeah.
Classic letdown for the Louisville Cardinal. You noticed it. Your Pitt Panthers, which have looked awful, terrible for 7 weeks, or 6 weeks. You noticed it. You said this is the kind of game Pitt wins.
Yeah.
Pitt wins.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a classic Pitt off the bye, Louisville off the big win. It's the most basically. I think I tweeted it that when Pitt's awful, they turn into the 85 Bears for a week, and classic switching the quarterback out to the Canadian sensation Christian Veilleux. It's Veilleux.
That's
now,
correct.
Veilleux, and pull off the big win and homecoming in front of a little fun moment there with Darrell Rivas getting honored, and then Aliquippa's MJ Devonshire pick six, another Aliquippa guy. So that was a little fun, but it's never a good week in 2023 when the Pitt football experience is a better experience than watching the pro team I root for. So
Well, that was my next question because we have to talk about your pro team. We're going to do it really quickly, but the question is Belichick tanking on purpose so we can get Caleb Williams?
I think I could see him tanking, but I could also see him getting the first overall pick and then drafting some guy from Saginaw Valley State first overall.
Yes.
So I mean, it's I actually I watched the game with our new colleague Evan Whedon, who's also a Patriots fan. So gave him the little initiation. We had a little therapy session watching that game.
It's such a terrible look.
Yeah, there are Mid-Penn teams that are run better offense than the New England Patriots.
That's absolutely correct. We've seen them. We've covered a couple actually.
Yeah.
They run a better system. All right, Dan. Obviously, we're powered by PennLive. We talk football every week. Thanks for joining us again. This week, it's week 9 of the high school football regular season. Lots to talk about. We always talk about team strengths a lot during this 30-minute session. But what about teams' faults? We're going to break out some of these teams. We came up with sort of 5 teams each. We may overlap a little bit. We may not. I don't know. I don't talk to him about his picks. He doesn't talk to me about my picks.
No.
We just sort of go and we chat about it. But we thought kind of pointing out some flaws or faults, and they could be very minor.
Yep.
They could be major, and maybe not so much faults, but maybe just being a little bit unlucky too.
Yeah, or things that in these last 2 weeks you kind of want to see ironed out a little bit to kind of make you more confident in them making a deep playoff run.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because that is the goal, and obviously all 5 divisions in the Mid-Penn still open for grabs. We've got a couple big marquee matchups this week coming up. Liberty Division is going to be decided, at least for a share. Lime Mountain plays Juniata in a big game at Wrestler Field up in Mandata. And, of course, we have East Penn going to Roscoe Warner to face the surging Susquehanna Township Indians. I got a chance to see Joe Heaton's crew last week against Northern. Looked very good, very clean, and very confident. So that's a dangerous team to watch too. But we got a couple other games too. But let's get into identifying some of these teams' faults.
Yeah.
We'll use the word faults, and we'll start with you and just point out and we'll discuss them.
All right. Well, this one is going to sound insulting when I say the word, but please, all of you Cougars fans, hear me out before you turn off the podcast. I'm good with Harrisburg. I'm going cleanliness, and I'm not saying I'm not saying Sean Lee doesn't shower or anything like that.
That's right.
I am saying when Harrisburg plays a clean football game, they're close to unbeatable, but especially in District 3 and and in the Mid-Penn, when they aren't hurting themselves with 5-yard penalties pre-snaps going 1st and 15, when they aren't muffin punts that are giving other teams touchdowns and 7-0 advantages. I mean, we saw it last week, a 20-0 win in State College. They played a clean football game, and they dominate a really good football team. This is kind of always sort of, with these young teams, because Harrisburg's still a really young team despite the experience on the team. Not that many seniors on the squad, a lot of underclassmen. If they are able to avoid the penalties, avoid the silly turnovers that aren't, I'm not talking interceptions or plays where, typical or getting, kind of hit sticked and then fumbling the football. I'm talking, losing track of punts, jumping ahead of the scrim. If they can stay ahead of the chains and avoid those penalties, I think they could be riding that wave of momentum to get them closer in that Mannheim game than they were the opening weeks of the year. But they have to play cleaner football, I think, like they did this past week. And I think that's what we say, right, is that when you see a game like this past week against State College, when they win 20-0,
right,
it shows you what this team can be, right? And then you look at the week before, they win that game against CDS, but it was a pretty ugly win that they needed Sean Lee to kind of carry them to. And, it's a good win to pull out when you're, backs against the wall in the rivalry game. But it's also a game where, let's face it, they didn't play up to their standard. And, I think that's what I'm looking for out of Harrisburg, is to avoid the silly mistakes and not shoot yourself in the foot. So I'm going with cleanliness in regards to the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you how many times over the past 10 years when I've covered a Harrisburg football game with Calvin Everett on the sidelines and their coaching staff saying 3 words every time: do your job.
Yeah.
Do your job. The Harrisburg guys seem to want to do everyone's job at once, and they're so excitable to make a huge play.
Yeah.
When just the fact that if all 11 guys do their job, they're all capable of doing that. And the collective is something really, really impressive.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was surprised that Harrisburg beat State College, but they were very surprised that they shut them out.
Yeah.
20-0.
And that defense can do that any
yes,
week.
And that defense is very capable of doing that at any point. Obviously, we talked about the Mannheim Township, but they will be, if the matchup happens again in district playoffs,
it won't be that
they
score.
will be way better prepared and for that one. So whether or not they beat the Blue Streaks, I don't know, because the Blue Streaks right now look unbeatable.
Yep.
But we'll see. But that's a good one to start with.
But if they beat them, it will have to be. They can't afford.
It has to be clean.
Yeah.
It has to be, absolutely. Because the Blue Streaks have been pretty good at not shooting themselves in the foot at all.
Yeah.
So that'll be important. All right, I'm going to move on. I think I'm going to guess this is one that you and I both probably will talk about, and we've talked about it before on the podcast, is Bishop McDevitt's run game.
Yep.
Now, I have to bring this up because there is such a high expectation at One Crusader Way, and there has been such a high expectation for every Bishop McDevitt team probably for the last 35 years. It just goes with the territory, especially now. Everybody's under a microscope because you're the defending 4A champs. Marquise Williams gave you that burst of energy and a great vision the last couple of years, the previous years before this. Before that, you even had guys like Christian Joy, who's now doing it for Trinity.
Yep. He
started out at Bishop McDevitt. Sincere Bowers was a 1,000-yard rusher. So even just if you take the small range of the last couple of years, there was probably a 160, 170 average rushing-wise. Mm-hmm. So I think most expected Maurice Barnes, who is a heck of a linebacker.
Yeah.
I love him at linebacker. Just to step in and all of a sudden become this, dominating running back. It hasn't happened. No. It just hasn't happened. And there are reasons for it. 5 new guys up front. That's one reason. And also the fact that Bishop McDevitt really hasn't had to lean on their run game when you have guys like Stone Saunders, Rico Scott, Chase Regan. That short passing scheme that McDevitt can just throw out at any time sort of is their rushing game. Yep. You know what I mean? When things aren't going great. And, oh, by the way, you throw Maurice Barnes into the fire against maybe 3 of the best teams in their state.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? To start out the season. So there are a lot of reasons for that. But now, the emergence of Nazir Jones Davis is really helped this team rushing-wise over the last couple weeks. But I still think they're going to need a little bit more to make it easier on themselves, where you're not always relying on Stone Saunders to throw for 350 and 6 touchdowns, which he has been doing.
And for me, the reason why it's so important is because we're in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
There's always a chance that one of these football games one Friday night, late in November, early December. It could be snowing, could be rain, could have some freezing rain, the ball could be really slippery, and you might need to run the ball a little more than you typically do as a pass offense. It's something that there could be a 30-mile-per-hour wind day where it's hard to get the ball downfield. You need to be able to run offense in multiple ways, and they were able to do that last year. Marquise Williams won them a lot of playoff games over the last 2 years.
He was a beast in the playoffs.
But when the weather got colder, Marquise Williams got bigger, and I just think I agree with you. I really like what Nas Jones-Davis has provided, but it's always like 8 or 9 carries or so. Like we just haven't seen it, and that's always one of the things with Bishop McDevitt, right? Is we kind of lose track of them as the season goes because it's harder and harder to figure out what the team currently is because we haven't seen them go against equal competition. Let's face it, in a long time, and so you just kind of wonder when you start facing those elite state level teams if they're going to need that run game a little bit more because there are a lot of good teams still left in for it. I still think McDevitt is the clear favorite, especially with Alqueva being a little down. But I think either Nas Jones. I think it's probably going to be Nas Jones-Davis if someone emerges. I think you'd agree with that too.
Yeah, I would agree with that because if anything, at the very least, you're keeping Mr. Barnes fresh for the defensive side. Yeah, and it's not like Maurice Barnes has been terrible.
No,
don't get me wrong.
But he's been much more impressive.
But he is very impressive on the defensive side, and to have fresh guys in the middle of that defense, that means a lot come postseason time.
Yeah. Well, I think we said all we need to say about that. My next pick is I'm going with Cedar Cliff because I think if you ask people to list, the one-loss teams in the Mid-Penn, I'm not sure Cedar Cliff would be the first team listed just because they've kind of went about their business and done their job. But I'm going the Colts, and my question with them, despite kind of the gaudy point numbers they've put up in a lot of these games, is just sort of big playability on offense. I've liked what I've seen out of Bennett Sechrist. I've liked what I've seen out of Eric Shriver. But are they going to be able to, when the games are on the line in the district playoffs, to be able to, on those they're going to be 3rd and 13s.
Yep.
They're going to be games where they're going to need a quick score before half or a quick score in the third quarter or something like that. Can they, pull out those big plays? Because we know the type of offense that they really just love pounding the football, and then Bennett Sechrist has kind of emerged as being a really good dual threat quarterback.
Really good runner,
really good runner. But when you get to the district playoffs, it's a kind of a different ball game where you're going to need to be able to kind of have those quick strikes as well. I think those long drives are really important. We saw it 2 years ago when they upset Shippensburg at Memorial Field. With a 55 rush game by Jonte Morris or whatever. But I think this offense has the ability to kind of be a big play offense with Bennett Sechrist's ability to move around. And they've kind of shown hints of it. But against kind of other playoff teams, it's been more of a, methodical. Even in the Hershey game where it was more defensively, they kind of made some big plays and fumble recoveries. And that's kind of been their flash unit. Has been the defense has been able to force a lot of turnovers and make big plays that way. But I think the offense has another gear because I've been big on Bennett Sechrist for a while, and I think there's another level he can make with kind of explosive plays. But I'm really excited to see how they end this season. They've got Redland, big West Shore game, and then Milton Hershey will be a fun one because Milton Hershey just seems to bring out the shootout in every team they play. So.
We're talking about Milton Hershey here in a minute. Yeah, for sure.
But I think that, Cedar Cliff has been a really fun surprise, and I think if that offense kind of uncorks some big playability, they could really make a run in that 5A bracket.
Yeah, I think in the preseason too, if you would have said Cedar Cliff 7-1 at this point, I don't think many people would have picked that.
No.
I mean, you obviously take the loss to Bishop McDevitt, but I didn't know how that offense would sort of come together, and Sechrist's done a really good job of just, it doesn't look like the most fluid offense at times, but every time he tucks and runs, it's 8, 10, 12 yards and keeps the chains moving. It's been pretty impressive.
Yeah.
This one I had a little fun with because I just put too nervy at quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to you, Susquehanna Township quarterback Torrin Evans. Okay, so I had not seen Susquehanna Township in person until last week. And listen, we're joking here a little bit because we love to see a kid play with that kind of passion, that kind of drive, and that kind of just aggressiveness and defiance. And that's how Torrin Evans sort of plays.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because, last year we were talking about can this guy make the next kind of step?
And he definitely has.
Right.
Yeah.
He had a heck of an off season, worked his tail off with his colleagues, and it's certainly paying off. You can see the confidence in the kid's eyes. But man, I would love to see him just take a little less. How do I put this? A little less chance with his body.
Yeah.
Because I have not seen a quarterback stand in the pocket while it's collapsing around him for longer periods of time than Torrin does.
It's usually the opposite, right? It's usually you get too nervous.
Exactly. You tuck too quick.
Yeah.
He will tuck and run. Don't get me wrong. He's very qualified as a dual threat quarterback.
But he's willing to take a hit.
But when you're looking at it from afar and watching the plays develop, you're like, here comes. And like, you wonder, I think he hears it, but I just don't think he cares. I just don't think he cares. And obviously, TD, he's a guy you're going to need for the postseason. He's been a monster performers for them, being 6-2, Dorian Smith as well too. But, if you take away one element of this offense, I think the offense collapses. So you really want to see number 15 healthy. So keep taking chances, my man, but maybe a few less. I think Joe Heaney sleep a little better at night too.
And with TD, I think I'll be honest, he was one of my biggest questions about the Susquehanna Township team, and I think he's answered them this year. He's been tremendous. They've really kind of one of my biggest nitpicks with them has been they got to get Lex Cyrus the ball more. Yes. They've really figured that out. Him and Jared Kern are one of the better wide receivers.
Kern is a tremendous asset for them. He really is. I mean, he's that 7 to 12 yard guy.
Yeah, he's the slot guy. He's the Wes Welker to Lex
Cyrus. He could probably have 12 receptions a game.
Yeah,
really.
So TD has just really answered a lot of the questions that I had about that passing attack. But you're right. They can't afford to lose him after he's figured that out.
No.
All right. My next pick, I'm going with one of the last remaining unbeaten teams in the Mid-Penn. I'm going with the West Perry Mustangs. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find a ton of fault, even though they actually have played a lot of closer games than you'd think for being an 8-0 team. My question with them is the size. Just they're not, and I think we all know this, right? They're not the biggest team.
Right.
In District 3 at all, at any position. Maybe wide receiver, Ian Goodling's a decent-sized wide out. But they just get away with, the grit and toughness and the coaching and just being in the right place and running hard. And, they have some athletes as well. But when you get deep into I don't care if they're in 3A or 6A, when you get deep into the playoffs, you're going to be going against some road graders. I think they all know one of the teams in that class that they'll be going up against that has that size, and it gave them a lot of problems last year. Are they ready to kind of overcome, being kind of an undersized team at every kind of phase of football with, the talent they have? Because they do have a lot of talent. Brad Hockenberry's been great. Marcus Quaker, obviously great. Ian Goodling, great. Caleb Gutshall's kind of that one bigger guy, and they use him at running back because I think that's a big part of the game Bob Bowden uses to kind of overcome that is, hey, we might not be big at the offensive line, so we're going to be big running the ball and kind of punish you in that way. But can they overcome the size this year? Because I think that's the one thing where it's like there's nothing really you can do about it, right, other than just kind of play above the listed height, that listed weight. And if any group can do it, we've been heaped praise on West Perry all year. If any group can do it, I think it's West Perry. But it's always going to be the question with them, and it's something that I think they'll have a couple chances to answer, and they'll have a chance to answer Week 10 a little bit when they go against Steel High.
Against Steel High, who's got good size.
Yep.
And has some hammers there too. Yeah, you're right. I think too. Also the weather. When you talk about the weather, I think it's a factor where you're going to need those guys, those bodies up front to kind of just get you those 4 or 5 yards at a time, because it's going to be slippery for a guy like Quaker. And it's going to be, tough to hook up with Ian Goodling, and you mentioned Hockenberry, although I would run him up anytime I got a chance to, because he's a monster.
Yeah, he's a really good player.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But I would love to see if one year if all Bob Bowden's guys up front were like 6'2", 260.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities. Like, whoa,
Start feeding the kids in Elliotsburg.
Woo, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of the Spartans.
Yeah.
Talked about Milton Hershey a little bit earlier.
Ooh, I got to watch that. That was a fun game to cover on Friday.
I think the Spartans need a gift. I think the fault is they need a gift. They got a nice rink there.
Yeah.
Beautiful facilities. They got one of those buildings with a contraption that look at the stars, whatever they call those things. Plenty of fields to go. Monster pool. Beautiful pool, slides, all that stuff. What they need, next purchase for Jeff Boger's crew, should be a Zen guard. This team, does it always have to be hair on fire, Dan? Does it always have to be? I understand that Milton Hershey operates a little bit differently than most. Yeah. Jeff or Coach Boger gets the students for a little while, then they go back.
Yeah.
And then they're off campus until right before the season starts. So you're starting at a different. You're starting with about 4 days of preparation for opening week. But I mean, just look, the first week against Hannah was zany. Then you had a zany game against Lower Dolphin just last week. You had zany stuff against a couple other teams. Yeah. It is just always a lot of chaos, a lot of drama. Don't get us wrong. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
It is really fun to watch. But I think they're just, if they could somehow just get a sense of consistency across the board, whether it be on offense or defense, because both need it, this would be a pretty dangerous football team. They're dangerous now, but I think they'd be a little better off than 4-4, and and better shape for the postseason. Really,
when you check the budget and you see you're assigned a Milton Hershey game, I get kind of excited because I know it's gonna. I know I'm gonna be writing in a 1,000-word game recap because when we do our game deciding moments, there are about 50 in every Milton Hershey game.
Exactly.
And there's no other way to write it. I really like watching. I love watching that passing attack. They just have a lot of weapons. Paris Blackston's emerged alongside Angel Roberts and Mo Karoma, and Mike Blitty has really emerged as a wide receiver. I didn't expect that at all.
I didn't expect Mike Blitty at all either.
Yeah, he's obviously a really good defensive end, but yeah, I agree. It's not even defense. It's just there are just weird things happen in their football.
It is. There's strange things that happen to them. I mean, I've seen negative punts.
Yeah.
Just the wind that howls there at Spartan Stadium, and it just things happen. You know what I mean? But it's always drama.
They would be a team I could see pulling off a big upset in a playoff game.
Yeah, absolutely, because they have the talent to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, one more, Danny.
All right. I'm going to go to Camp Hill. I'm going Trinity. And, I mean, this is a pretty simple one.
Yeah.
Health. I mean, they lost the top lineman at the start of the year, Braden, to injury. But, I mean, the real thing is Messiah Mickens. It sounds like he had a maintenance day this past week, which is why he didn't play.
Right.
But let's just Christian Joy's an awesome football player. He's an awesome football player. Trinity needs Messiah Mickens if it wants to do what it does. And it needs a healthy Messiah Mickens, which is why it was smart. I think we've been calling for it for a couple weeks. Give him a week off. Let him recover. He hasn't been the same since the Y missing game.
Right.
They need him to be what he was at the start of the year. And he has not been healthy. He's still put up decent numbers, but if Messiah Mickens is healthy, they're going to have that equalizer in every single game. And I think that's just my biggest question. Are we going to watch him this week against Steel High, and is he going to look, 100%? Mm-hmm. If he does, watch out. That's pretty much
absolutely. I also had the health for Trinity. That was it, too. My last one is just it's no secret. It's the quarterback situation at Cumberland Valley. Look, 5-5. Cumberland Valley's done tremendous to get back. Well, I'm saying 5-5 is going to get them in without a problem. They can't fall below 8 at 5-5. No. They have State College now, Tuna left. I mean, both of them seem like winnable games now that State College got shut out.
Yeah.
You don't know where the situation is. State College is also struggling with their run game.
Yeah.
And Deontay Sheff, you're thinking, they're in great shape. Yeah. Haven't been real clean in that department. So the Eagles are going to get into the 6A bracket at 5-5. Right now they're 4-4. But as good as Bryce Sterritz has been, there's got to be, if they want to make any kind of hay in districts, what's essentially is a gauntlet. I mean, you look at the teams that are going to show up in the District 3 6A playoffs.
There's like a state playoff.
There is a lot of danger in there. of course, Man Township topping it all. If you want to make some hay and win a game or two, just the element to pass.
Yeah.
The surprise, just the actual threat.
Because they have weapons too.
Yeah.
Caden Pines is a good receiver.
Has to be there. It has to be there. It's just you cannot rely on Bryce Saracen. No, I'm not saying anything that Coach Oswalt doesn't know.
And it seems like they've shifted to Grant Shepley a little bit at quarterback, IMG transfer, and he's had some up and downs, but all in all, I think he might be the guy that they turn to at this point, which is kind of crazy. A late season quarterback change. Sounds like my Panthers a little bit.
They've tried 3 different guys, and again, they're all capable, but it just has to be more consistent. There has to be, and you have to build that in.
Yeah.
You can't just say, okay, well, Starrett is our workhorse. We're going to run him 35 times and hope he gets 200 yards and 3 TDs.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. Particularly, it's not going to happen when they get to the district playoffs.
Yeah.
For sure. So, all right. So we've identified a few faults of a couple of these teams, all postseason relevant squads. Looking to get in.
Prove us wrong.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. McDevitt will probably run for 400 yards this week. Yeah. I don't know. You got Stone Star. You got to throw it around. Yeah. So anyway, but thanks again for joining us in this week's edition of PA High School Football Report. For Dan Sostek, I'm Eric Epler. Check out Penn Live all week long for features, stories, and all kind of preview stuff leading up to the week 9 of the regular season. Get out and watch some football. Thanks, folks.